Good morning. I just noticed I'm getting light with all this walking, but I should be back in the gym in about another week or two. So I'll fix things then. I should be back in another bit of juice and I'll build up again. But until then, it's thirsty work this walking around. I was going to bring you on a bit of a tram ride. Around Sofia. I was going to take the tram from Macedonia Square down to the train station just to show you a bit of Sofia, but I was going to explain the whole payment system and everything on the tram because it's quite complicated. But then I decided that the tram ride would only be a bit of a distraction and that you'd be better off to focus on what I'm saying, because that's the most important thing, is to focus on the information. So I decided to cut the distractions to a minimum and tell you how it is. The American credit card won't work on the tram. You get onto the tram system and you have to tap the card. Now you can pay the driver cash if you have cash, but it's usually 160 for the tram, 160 left, but it's 2 left to the driver. But that's if he even pays enough attention to take the money off you. Sometimes he's too busy to pay attention to take the money off you. Sometimes he's no change. So it's nearly better to have, if you want to pay for the tram, to have a prepaid ticket that you can buy in Serdica station, or you can buy from the mobility centre near the hostel, or there's a booth at the train station which you can buy a travel pass as well. It's 1 level for the card, 3 level for the plastic card, and you can load it then for train journeys. But the thing is, if you get on the tram straight from the train station, or you're not familiar with the payment system, and you think you can pay, people will tell you, oh, you can pay with your credit card, you can pay with your credit card. The American credit card won't work because it's an embedded. You needed I think they either have an embedded chip or you need an embedded chip, but they can't do pay and go because everybody was fleecing them. Everybody was using a scanning machine and scanning the credit cards in their pockets in crowded situations like buses and subways and things like that. Now they banned those credit cards in America because they were being fleeced, and they haven't banned them over in this part of the world. So if you have a desire for money and enough initiative, that's a very good working model, because obviously no one's doing it here, or not enough people are doing it here, or they would have banned it. So that's something to think about. And the next question then, when it comes to the tram and taking a tram journey, the next big question is something I've been looking into for the past few days, is to pay or not to pay. This is the question. Now, I have taken a good few tram journeys in this city that I haven't paid for a number of reasons. I don't know if you heard the Waterboy song. I'll put it on my Facebook page. I might put a link to the Facebook page in the comments of this video. But you know, it's you don't need no ticket, you don't pay no fee. This is the river, that was the river, this is the sea. And if you can understand that, that's why you know I don't pay, because for me, you have to learn how to embrace the dark side. And a lot of people don't seem to understand this, because I meet some people over in hospital and do the whole spirituality and all this bullshit, but they don't seem to actually understand a very big part of spirituality. And that's what Carl Jung said. One does not get enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So let's just unpack that. Let's make the darkness conscious and the necessity for this. Now, if you decide that even though it's ridiculously hard to pay, they make it very hard to pay on the tram, and you're an American, you have enough balls, you don't even have to be American, you can be anything you want. But if you have one credit card, you can't pay for 2 people. So if you're with someone who has a credit card, you don't have to pay, because all you have to say is, I thought he was paying. Now, they will argue with others, but they can't ask you for ID because they're just ticket checkers. So they don't have any great power. More or less, you can tell them, now you don't have to be rude about it, but you can tell them to jog on basically. Like, and they can't do very much about it because they're not authorised to ask you for ID. And even though they try and march you to the ATM, they don't have no authority to do that either. So all you have to do is stand your ground, if you have enough balls. But the thing is then, you see, the question is to pay or not to pay. And the question is then, if you pay because you're afraid of the consequences. Like, it's a 30 level fine. Now, if you're afraid to pay because you're afraid to get caught, you're afraid to break the law, you're afraid to break the law because it's doing something illegal, and you're afraid of the consequences, and that's not a moral choice. That's not a moral choice. That's a choice that's made through coercion, that's made through fear. And in order for it to be a moral choice, you would have to not be afraid to you don't need no ticket, you don't pay no fee. That was the river, this is the sea. But if you're afraid not to take the chance, that's not a moral choice. And you can make that across loads and loads, not just in relation to the tram. The tram is just an example. But my point is that if you don't overcome your desires and aversions, and this is the point of embracing the dark side, that there is no fear, that there's no fear. And then when there's no fear, you can make a moral choice. You can say, well, I'm going to pay because I feel it's the right thing to do. Or when I went out, I was discussing this to a good few people recently, like my favourite American being one, and my mates who are social deviants, they're misfits. They're not allowed in a hostel, and rightly so. They're not conducive to the ambience. They're just not conducive to the ambience. But I go drinking with them in the park on my time off and things like this. I go drinking with them in the park. And one of them is a complete anarchist. And so I said to him, like, what the weak do is the weak make up stories then to rationalise their choices, because to pretend that it's, that like for example, I said to one fella, how much is the if you don't pay the fine on the tram? And he said, it's 40 level. But he said they bring police with them now. So the police have the authority to ask you for ID or to march you to the ATM. And so I asked the boys, do you ever see the police on the tram? They said, no, never see the police. And there's no checking at all after 8 p.m. There's no checking at all. And I says, all right. And then I said to my other mate, do you pay? And he says, oh yeah, I pay, all right. And I says, because you're afraid. Are you afraid to travel for nothing? And he says, no, sure. He said, I'm not afraid at all. I walk around 10 grams of weed on me. And I said, oh yeah, that's a very good point. If I was walking around 10 grams of weed on me, I'd pay for the tram as well. But the point I'm trying to make is, what's very important to understand here is any choice that's made through coercion or fear is not a moral choice. And that's the big takeaway from this. And if you haven't overcome your fears, your fears and your desires and aversions, any choice that's made in relation to I need money, I need money, I want money, which would be desire, I need love, I need this, I need their desires, or any choice that's influenced by your aversions. You're afraid to do something different because of the consequence. You're afraid to do something different. You're afraid to have that experience. Then that's not a moral choice either. You're not even determining the nature of change. Somebody else is. And how conscious of they are or not depends how far up the ladder you go. As my soul once said to me, if you do enough work on yourself, you stay conscious through the cycle of change. And they're the people who rule the world. But people can't understand life at this level of cognition. Another thing then the weak do then is, then I asked another girl, I said, do you pay on the tram? And she said, oh, I do, yeah. And I says, yeah. And I says, what for? Sure. I says, like, and she says, well, I saw someone the other day being fined. She said the ticket person checked and they fined him. And I said, how much did they take off him? She said 50 level. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I am saying it's highly unlikely. And what I'm saying is, what the weak do is the weak make up stories to rationalise their choices, so they don't feel so bad, they feel safer in the choice that they made. But then these stories are used to encourage others to follow their example. But this is the tyranny of the weak. We could actually say what John Stuart Mill said, tyranny of the majority. But the majority is now the weak. The majority is the weak, so it's the tyranny of the weak. But the thing is, once you become conscious of the tyranny of the weak, you have to establish the facts. And then you have to have no fear, and you have to say to yourself, to pay or not to pay, that is the question. And it's not just in relation to the tram. It's in a number of things. Like, for example, insurance, everything. Like, this has a number of applications. Yeah. So that's the moral of the story. The moral of the story is we embrace the dark side, and that's only then can you become free to determine the nature of change. Embrace the dark side. Good morning.